Welcome to Better Storytelling. In this program, you're going to learn how long your story should be. Word count and story length. You've struggled with your story for weeks, created great characters, designed an intriguing plot, and you spent hours and hours working on a fantastic story. You send it off to an agent and promptly get a rejection letter. What happened? One of the main reasons that stories are rejected by literary agents is because the story is too long. Beginning writers usually create a story that's just too long for a novel. But rejection letters rarely explain the reason the agent isn't interested in representing your work. Writers usually forget to think about how long the story needs to be. After all, agents don't bother trying to sell something that the publishers won't buy. Most of the time, the manuscript is just too long. How do you know if your story is too long? Novel length isn't usually thought about by new writers. With so many things to keep track of, it's just another detail to forget when you're caught up in creating something. Looking at published stories can be deceptive. The reason for this is because most novels are from established authors with more than one published book. Here are the word counts from some typical novels. Harry Potter, The Sorcerer's Stone, 76,000. The Chamber of Secrets, 85,000. The Prisoner of Azkaban, 107,000. The Goblet of Fire, 190,000. The Order of Phoenix, 257,000. The Half-Blood Prince, 168,000. The Deathly Hallows, 198,000. Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, 95,000. The Fellowship of the Ring, 177,000. Two Towers, 143,000. Return of the King, 134,000. Twilight, 118,000. New Moon, 132,000. Eclipse, 147,000. Breaking Dawn, 192,000. Notice that the first books from these authors were shorter. The Fellowship of the Ring, while longer, was not Tolkien's first book. Harry Potter was 76,000 words. The Hobbit was 95,000 words. Twilight was 118,000 words. For comparison, the one book which is famous for being too long to read is War and Peace, 561,000 words long. How long is your novel? Calculating word count. There are two ways to calculate word count: MS Word or iWork Pages. The program you use when writing will keep track of the word count. This may seem the best way to keep track of how long your story is, but publishers use a different formula. Page count times 250. Publishers calculate word count by multiplying the page count by 250. One reason this method is used is because when an editor receives a manuscript, it isn't an electronic file. It's a stack of paper. When sending a query to an agent, you will not send the entire book. You will usually just send the first 5 or 10 pages along with a 1 or 2 page query. When putting the word count in the query, you can use either formula. Publishers prefer the second method, while agents tend to like the first method. How long should your novel be? It all depends on what kind of story you're telling. Here's a great guide to story length expressed in the word count. Short stories are under 2,500 words. Short stories can range from 2,500 to 7,500 words. Novelettes are from 7,500 to 20,000 words. Novellas are from 20,000 to 50,000 words. Novels are from 70 to 90,000 words long. The genre will affect the length of the story too. Young adult novels tend to be shorter than novels and can be 50 to 80,000 words long. Science fiction and fantasy novels tend to be longer and can be up to 125,000 words long. Screenplays are different. Since all screenplays use Courier font, the length is expressed in terms of pages. Screenplays are 110 to 120 pages long. You may have read longer books, but it's quite rare for a publisher to accept a longer manuscript. When you find books with word counts higher than these numbers, it's typically from an established author. Keep your novel short, under 90,000 words. If you're a first-time unpublished author, then you need to keep the word count down. The higher the word count, the less likely it will sell. Longer novels exist, of course, but these are usually from established writers. If you have trouble keeping your word count down, take a look at removing unnecessary exposition. Some editors have even recommended cutting the first 3 chapters out of a novel, since new writers tend to put in way too much exposition. What font to use for your novel? Don't cheat. Using a tiny font won't work. With screenplays, if you use anything other than Courier 12 point, you're likely to get an instant rejection. With novels, a good font to use is Times Roman 12 point. So when writing your first novel, keep the word count under 70 to 90,000 words, or 120,000 words for a science fiction or fantasy novel. I hope you've enjoyed this program on writing techniques. If you'd like more information, please visit my website, betterstorytelling.net, or visit my blog, betterstorytelling.net/blog. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.